You'll see it.
Yeah, there's a few people. Oh, there we are. Welcome, guys, to the Meat of the Matter podcast. So I'll be filling in for Tony this week. Tony's a little bit busy. This week we have myself, Peter, Byron, and Lisa. How are you guys?
Great.
Great.
Amazing,
Great.
amazing. So, guys, this week has been like any other week. We have a lot of people in the industry that are just talking absolute rubbish. I love the heading, Peter, that you put on this. Is it fitness or is it madness? So we're going to talk about a few subjects today because there's a few subjects that we really need to talk about. So the first one we're going to talk about is carnivore is garbage for bodybuilding. I'll have my say on this very, very shortly. But let's start with yourself, Byron. What do you think about this?
I watched the clip that you shared this week as well, and it's like I
I
just
have
found
to upload it, but basically it's saying exactly what the title says.
Yeah.
You can expect the usual arguments.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Brian. Go ahead, Byron.
No. I just when I watched what you shared this week as well, I'm like kind of, I find that a lot of, especially some of the younger people that have been shown all the same brute stuff from the industry and following the same advice, speaking the same language, it just, I don't know if people actually update themselves or they think once they've learned something, then that's it. There's nothing to change or learn after that. I just, yeah.
That's often
about
the
yourself?
case, Byron, isn't it? People get an idea about something, they learn something somewhere. I've been the same in the past. You think you've learned something somewhere, somebody wants to come along with new information. You're like, no, I've done this. I know everything there is to know about it. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
like I know it all, but I mean, at the end of the day, you got to look and say, like, exactly like that with that lady that was talking, like, what do bodybuilders do when they get lean before competition? What's the very thing they do to get lean? They
Yeah,
cut
like
carbs. So what does that tell you?
exactly, and that's why I just can't understand why we can't stay in shape all year round. Like, why do we need to bulk, then lean down, bulk and lean down? Because when you bulk, I don't care what anybody else says, you're fat.
Yeah.
That's a fact. You are fat. You're putting on all this excess fluid onto your body. You cannot tell me you're in the bulking season. You're not in a bulking season. I'm in a bulking season at the moment. My food intake is very, very high. I'm still walking around with a six pack. So you know what I mean? Whereas if I want to step on stage again next year, I'd have to bring my food down again. But I'd be shredded. But it wouldn't take me long to get into that shredded condition. Whereas if you're talking to someone who has a lot of excess water in their body or an awful lot of excess body fat, their prep is going to take up to nearly 9 months to strip that body fat off. Why would you want to do 9 months out of the year to strip body fat off when you can probably do it in like 4 to 5 months?
And why I think this is very unhealthy. You can think of a natural cycle. Every year there is winter. You gain weight naturally, and then in summer you become more active. You become leaner, and this cycle you go through, let's say 80 or 90 times in your life. And now you're going to do either bodybuilding with bulking and cutting, or you're going to do yo-yo dieting, and you experience this thing like, I don't know, 200, 300 times a year. And losing weight in the end is on itself not a healthy process, right? It's like you're in a deficit usually, and yeah, it's consuming. It's a consuming process.
And see, the thing is, like you said, Peter, when you focus on weight and you're putting yourself into a calorie deficit, you're starving yourself.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You're literally starving yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas when we look at burning body fat, you cannot out-train a bad diet. So if your goal is to burn body fat, believe it or not, training is not actually going to solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem is controlling insulin, controlling your blood sugar. Because if blood sugar is very, very high, you're going to be tapping into your fat storage all the time, and you're not going to burn fat. That's a fact. That is an absolute fact. Whereas if you're carrying an awful lot of excess water, this is inflammation. When you go on a diet, you're going to reduce all this inflammation in your body. So this is why when people step onto a scales and they're severely overweight, and the first week they step on the scales like, Jesus, I've lost 20 pounds. Yes, you've lost 20 pounds of water. It's not body fat. So you're going to remove that inflammation out of your body very quickly. So this is the argument I have with these people, these crazy people in the industry, is that they'll say to you that the reason why people choose the carnivore diet is because they lose weight very, very quickly. Yes, they lose water weight very, very quickly. But the question is simply this: why do we need to carry this excess water in the first place? Like, give me one good reason why we should be walking around with this amount of water in the body, because this is leading to health problems, whether you like it or not. This is what's leading to inflammation. This is what's leading to our crisis with type 2 diabetes. This is the reason why our obesity numbers are on the rise at the moment. This is the reason why people are struggling with food noise.
Also why insulin stays elevated for so long, because they're continually snacking on the very thing that's making them stay hungry.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. They're not in a position to shut off that hunger hormone. It's like they have to eat every 2 hours because their insulin levels are too high. Whereas if we block that and go on the carnivore diet and focus on the leptin hormone and the ghrelin hormone, we can shut off that hunger. So that means you don't need to eat as much. Plus, you're tricking the body into thinking that you're not starving anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was only speaking about this to Victoria and Gabriel shortly, before I got on this podcast. I did this experiment myself, like a couple of months ago, where I just ate 6 cans of sardines for 2 weeks. Now my food intake is very, very high at the moment. We don't focus on calories here, but I'm taking in about 4.5 pounds of red meat every day. So I don't know what that is in calories, maybe over 4,000, something like that. But I was eating 6 tins of sardines for 2 weeks. Now, when I looked at the amount of food I was eating, it was extremely low. Extremely low. It's probably under 12, something like that. But I can tell you right now, I couldn't eat anymore. I was stuffed. Now, how is it possible that I can go from nearly 4.5, like in calorie wise, down to 1,200, and I'm still full?
And it's exactly what you see when people start with the carnivore diet. A lot of them can eat very little. Like, I don't know, even things like 1,500 calories, where it's normally like 2,500. And then eventually they reach the point where they don't have enough fat mass on the body, and they start under eating because they are used to this whole process. I mean, I've seen it even with Kerry Mann from Homestead How at some point. And you have to really realize that you have to increase your food intake at that point. And things like sardines, I think they work because you have enough fat mass on your body. And the second thing is the nutrient density. It's like it contains virtually everything. And it also promotes fat burning in the first place, ketosis. And I think also the impact on FGF21 is there as well. So it's still also low in protein, so it works probably. Yeah,
I'm sure you were in this position many times yourself, Lisa.
I would like to hear, actually, I was just going to butt in there, actually, Mark, and ask you to tell us a little bit more about water weight. Where it comes from, why we get, because I would imagine there's a lot of people watching that don't understand, what's going on with water weight. Like, why do we gain water weight? Where does it come from? And why is that the first thing to come off when we start sort of dieting or dropping how much we're eating? Like, what's going on there? Can you speak a bit more about?
Yeah, sure. So basically, for every 1 gram of carbohydrate you're eating, you're storing nearly 4 grams of water into your body.
Right.
So you're how you retain water in your body is the amount of carbohydrates. So basically, if you look at it like this, like for me, if you look at where I am now, if I show you guys a picture of me, I'm very, very lean. If I added in carbohydrates, I would look bigger. So it would look like an illusion. I would look like I'm just aesthetically bigger, but I'm not bigger. I've just filled the muscle up with excess glycogen. Okay, so carbohydrates are filling up the muscle with more glycogen. But we can do this through a process called gluconeogenesis. See, this is the issue. People are absolutely convinced that if you want to replenish muscle glycogen, This is where the issue is. People are convincing you that you need carbohydrates. This is why when you hear people talking about carnivore and they're saying that carnivore is garbage for bodybuilding, it's the opposite. Because you don't need any carbohydrates to build muscle. Like nobody can convince me on social media that you need any carbohydrates to build muscle. Because if that's the case, you need to come on and have a chat with me, because I'll pull you on this big time. There's no carbohydrates that build muscle. The only macro we need to build muscle is protein. Okay, we need to put mechanical tension on the muscle to build muscle. Mechanical stress. You need to give the muscle enough stress for the muscle to grow. You need to allow the muscle to recover. Okay, you need to eat in a surplus over time. You need to add in some sort of aggressive overload. That can be time retention, what we're going to talk about shortly, or that can be strength training. You need to pick one. You do that over a consistent period of time, you will build muscle. See how I didn't mention anything about carbohydrates there? Whereas when you eat carbohydrates, you have this watery look. You look inflated, because that's what carbohydrates do. They fill you up with muscle. You'll see it in people's faces. Like if I had carbohydrates for 6 months, you would see my cheekbones. They'd be blown up. They'd be gone.
Yeah.
So my body will be filling out in water.
That's why a lot of the bodybuilders are puffy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they replace the carbohydrate, because that's what a lot of bodybuilders do, when they get like 6 weeks out from a show, they actually take the carbohydrates out. Why do you think that is? Because they want to be more shredded on stage. They don't want to have that bloated feeling. The next thing we need to focus on then is how carbohydrates impact the gut. Now, if you're walking around with gut issues and you're like, I don't feel good, there's something not right here, or your energy is not the best. Like, have you ever noticed that in the afternoon? Like it gets to around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and you're like, I need to have a nap here.
Oh, it used to be, yeah, every day when I was eating carbohydrates.
You know what I mean?
Can I jump back a second there? Because I just want to sort of tie a couple of points together where you know, you're mentioning that you know, this waterway that people have when they eat carbohydrates comes from every gram of carbohydrate, you've got your 4 grams of water. And so when they stop eating the carbohydrates, or they reduce the amount of carbohydrates they're eating, then the water will be passing. There's just another point that I hear coming up quite a lot about, you know, people needing to supplement with electrolytes or make sure that they're eating enough salt, in my opinion. And the salt is probably enough because it's mainly sodium, but you're passing through the salt. So when you're dropping the water, you're actually pulling the salt out with it, which is why in the first at least couple of weeks or so, when people are dropping this water away, then it's crucial that they are taking in enough salt. And that's
a good point, Lisa. Sorry, I'll talk to you out when you're finished. Go ahead.
No, I mean, that's pretty much what I was saying, really. It's really important to get enough salt in, particularly in the beginning. I mean, you know, further down the line, you find yourself not wanting to throw salt on everything. But certainly in the beginning, you have to salt to taste, because your body's going, okay, goodness, we've just got rid of all this water and you've taken all the salt with it.
Absolutely. And that's why when you get into this space, that's why electrolytes and sodium intake is important, because you want to have those muscle contractions. So you need to increase your sodium. You need to increase your that's why electrolyte. A lot of people will say that electrolytes are rubbish, but they're only rubbish because you're eating the standard shitty diet. Whereas if you're on the carnivore diet, you actually rely on electrolytes. If you want to keep on building muscle, your body needs to have electrolytes for those muscle contractions. So otherwise, you're going to feel flat when you walk into the gym. You're not going to get that pump. The best thing about walking into a gym and training is you feel that pump. You know what I mean? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You get that pump feeling. It feels you know you're pumped with the muscle. That's why electrolytes and sodium intake is very, very important.
Yeah, especially sodium, right?
But it has nothing to do with carbohydrates. We can fill up the muscle. We can fill up the muscle with carbohydrates, but we can also do this with sodium and electrolytes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the contradiction. It's like, well, where's the argument here when you keep telling me that carbohydrates are important for muscle growth? Like, we need to understand what muscle growth is. If we're talking about the actual muscle, as in the size of the actual muscle, then carbohydrates have nothing to do with it. Whereas if you want to increase muscle mass size, like if you want to increase the bicep size, then will carbohydrates make the bicep look bigger? Yes, it will, but it's an illusion. It's not the actual muscle.
The
Does that
tricky
make
thing
sense?
is that just a little bit, it does help in their context, right? Because you need insulin, of course, for the anabolic effect and for muscle building. So if your body is used to high levels of insulin, then I can imagine that eating additional carbohydrates within the context, of course, of already carbohydrate-loaded lifestyle, then the carbohydrates will indeed spike the insulin. So that might, in that context, have a little bit of benefit, but it's wrong to generalize that to, for example, ketogenic context.
Yeah, and see when we look at the insulin is the anabolic hormone. That's we know that's not the problem. We know this is a natural way of building muscle, but insulin is not a fat storage hormone. That's the difference. So we can activate the anabolic hormone through gluconeogenesis, giving the body a reliable energy source, which is going to be fat. It's not going to be carbohydrate because that's a quick energy source, allowing your body to recover and just adding some resistance training into your life.
Yeah,
that's all you need to do.
That last one is also important, not just for stimulating the muscle growth itself, but also stimulating insulin. Because today, for example, I went exercising, fasted, and I also didn't eat afterwards. And I had to use 2 units of insulin just to keep my blood sugar levels down. And that happens, of course, in a healthy person as well. So the pancreas will produce 2 units of insulin, or anything, depending on the person. And that's quite a lot, because that's like at least half the dose that it would produce for a normal meal. So just by exercising, by cortisol and adrenaline and all those things, insulin will go up. So the anabolic effect is already there.
And that's why the least amount of training you do in the gym is for me, that's the way to go. This was half an
hour, Mark.
Yeah, because like when you think about it, if you put your body through an awful lot of stress and you're going into the gym, you're doing the cardio, you're doing the resistance training, that's going to impact stress. And it's also going to impact blood sugar. Now, if your blood sugars are high, guess what happens to your cravings? They go up. They go up. People don't understand that you can get a very, very good workout done in 40 minutes. I'm going to talk about this shortly. The problem is people do not know how to train to intensity. That's in my opinion. Because I have people that are in the gym for only 20 minutes. And people are saying to me, 20 minutes is not enough. There's no way 20 minutes is not enough. But you can actually warm up in the sets. You don't need to do too many reps and sets in the gym. We're all convinced that we need to do 6x8, 8x8, 12x12, all this rubbish, all this junk volume. None of that is necessary. Trust me, none of it. You want to keep your stress levels low. This is why I talked about mechanical stress. Elevated cortisol is a problem. Okay, that's chronic cortisol. Chronic stress is a problem. Whereas stress in general is not a problem. It only becomes a problem when it becomes chronic. So how do we eradicate that problem? How do we keep our stress levels low? First of all, when it comes to your nutrition, get rid of the carbohydrates. This is going to cause unbelievable damage. Look at your training program. Look at what you're doing. If you're doing too much, you're going to run yourself out. It's only a matter of time. You're going to hit a wall. I'm telling you, you're going to run out of energy and you're going to struggle. So what you need to do is you need to reevaluate everything. Your lifestyle, your family commitments, your work commitments, your gym commitments, your nutrition commitments. You put that all together. What happens to your stress levels? They go down. If your stress levels are going down, your sugar levels are under control. They're never in that fight or flight situation. You're just at ease. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been sort of trying to learn a little bit recently about the nervous system as well, nervous system regulation. I've just joined a Facebook group in order to try to understand that better, because obviously if your nervous system is dysregulated,
Mhm.
then of course that's chronic stress, and it's constant chronic stress, and of course it's going to impact insulin in the body. And so yeah, I'd like, when I learn a little bit more about that, it would be nice to to talk more about that, because I think it's a really, really important factor, particularly for women, and particularly for women of a certain age as well.
Oh,
More,
okay, so let's-
more over than men, I would say.
Okay, so let's touch on that subject. So when we talk about what you just mentioned, Lisa, the CNS system, the central nervous system. Now, what you want to do is don't go into the gym and ruin yourself. So you don't need to go into the gym and think that you need to lift extremely heavy weight to get the job done. This is the biggest myth in the fitness industry by a country mile. Now, if you like strength training, you do that. Okay, I'm not saying there's a problem with that. If that's what you're into, you keep doing that. But we need to understand this, that when it comes to muscle growth, okay, and muscle in general, the only thing the muscle knows is mechanical tension. That's all the muscle knows. The muscle hasn't got a clue how much weight you're lifting, how many sets you're doing, how many reps you're doing. It only knows tension. So how can we add as much tension onto that muscle as much as possible? That's what we should be thinking about. Now, I believe the best way to do this, to keep your stress levels low and control your CNS system, is time under tension, because you are fully in control of that movement. Whereas when you lift heavy, things can go wrong. You can end up getting injured. Your form could go really, really bad.
Yeah.
This is where, and then the speed of the movement also. Do you ever notice when people go into the gym and they're lifting away from A to B and they're doing this? They're just trying to get the set done as quick as possible. Do you ever notice that?
It's pointless, isn't it?
Whereas with me, I only spoke about this the other day. I can pick up 12 kilos, which is probably, it's extremely light for me. But I can make that set really, really tough if I just mentally lock into what I need to do here. So if I really activate the muscle and really just really fight against that weight, I can make that set really, really hard. I can make 4 reps look extremely difficult, and it would look like I'm lifting 40 kgs in my hands. Whereas if I lift 40 kgs in my hands, I have to do this. I have to get it done really, really quick. There's no way I can control that. I would rather focus on the muscle, take the muscle to complete and utter failure, instead of taking the weight from A to B and destroying my CNS system in the process also, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very interesting. Can I bring up another point about exercise as well while we're on the topic? Because, you know, I was walking today and I saw somebody running. I saw a few people running today, and you know, my automatic thought was, you're just running off the glucose that you've eaten. You're just running off the carbohydrates. I mean, how much of a place is there for running and such exercise on a ketogenic or carnivore diet?
If you like doing running, keep doing it. But running has nothing to do with burning fats. Nothing. You're, like you said, you're only burning glucose. You're burning sugar. Now the question is simply this: where is the glucose and sugar coming from? So instead of putting yourself through all this torture of running, would it not just be better just to eliminate this problem in the first place? Because none of us like running. I don't know about you guys, but I hate running. I hate cardio. Hate it.
But also in the past as well, when I used to train clients as well, a lot of my clients were runners, and I can tell you now, they were some of the people that had the highest fat body percentages that I used to train. And they might have looked slim, but when you go and do the measurements on them, they used to have some of them used to have the highest percentage body fat. And it was like, oh, why is that? Because you got to understand, running's not there to burn fat. And plus, most runners don't ever sit and do weights or anything like that. So they're not really building muscle. And if you go look at any big marathon runners, they don't really have much muscle on them. And you can see they have a lot of loose skin. There's no real firmness there. It's not the same as if someone just did a lot of walking and then maybe did a bit of weight training as well. So the illusion to think that running is the ultimate for fat burning is also been something that's been put out in the industry in some form of way, which is not really truth.
And when you look at like a sprinter that does like 100-meter sprints compared to someone who does a marathon, it's night and day difference. The sprinters look jacked. They've got this muscle. They have this aura about them. They just look powerful. You know what I mean? Whereas when you look at someone who's a marathon runner, they just look scrawny. It's like they're very, very thin. They've got very, very little muscle mass in their body. And you know what I mean? And this has an effect on your metabolism. Unless you have a great lifestyle where you can go home, you can recover, and you can eat properly, and you have people looking after you, that's fair enough. But nine times out of 10, people don't have that. So you don't need to do any of that. You just need to do enough.
Mark, let me add in experience story I have. It's when I go cycling in summer. It's a very tricky thing. So either I cycle so much that it works and I continue cycling for weeks in a row and I lose weight. My body percentage can go to like 11%. No problem, very quickly as well. But as soon as you start to reduce it a little bit, or if you do it only like once or twice a week, I see a totally different effect. And I actually gain weight because doing this endurance exercise, it really promotes eating in the end. So every time afterwards, well, if I'm not in shape and if I don't do this regularly, I tend to crave things like yogurt and dairy, basically, or worse. And this doesn't happen if I do it really on a frequent basis. And also, I have to be perfectly fat adapted at that point. And then I see no issue. It's actually, in that context, a very nice way to quickly lose weight. I once went for 200 to 250 kilometers fasted. I usually don't do that, but I don't know how much I lost. But being in ketosis, the only way that I could get my energy is from body fat. And tuna, what is it? Like every 30 kilometers or so, you spend like 1,000 calories. So it's, I don't know, it was 5,000-6,000 calories that I have burned. So in terms of fat mass.
And see, that's a problem, because you need to think of it like this. If your energy expenditure is very, very high, guess what's going to happen to your hunger? It's going up. It's going up. I tested this myself just recently when I was in Florida. I was in Florida, as you guys know, but I was doing like, say, up to nearly 40,000 steps a day, probably more. Now, my food intake had to go up because my body was demanding that. Now, I had two choices. I can either ignore that or I can eat more. Most people would ignore it. Now, when you ignore it, guess what's happening to you? Guess what you're doing? You're putting your body in that fight or flight situation again. You're putting more stress on your body. Your body doesn't want to be in this situation. You're putting your body in that starvation mode. So this is why you need to listen to your body. When your body's telling you you need to eat more food, you need to eat more food. But the difference between carnivore and the standard American diet is that this is forced onto you, whereas the carnivore diet, it's not. It's controlled. You only eat when you're really, really hungry. We know as carnivores when we're really, really hungry, whereas when we're eating the shitty diet, we don't, because you're not allowing that hunger hormone to switch off.
Yep.
And this is why we're all focusing on the wrong problem. That we're all convinced that we just need to chase calories. We just need to go into the gym and train as much as possible. But by doing that, if you're in a deficit, do you really think that's going to work? Just think about this logically. If your food is low and you're trying to get in shape long term, if your energy expenditure is high, do you really think those calories are going to be under control? They're going to get out of control eventually. By about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they're going to get out of control. You're going to hit a wall. You're going to have that massive binge. You're going to put an awful lot of guilt onto yourself. You're going to have these morons tell you that this is your problem. You're not disciplined enough. The reason why you're struggling is because you're the problem here. You need to get on with this, stop moaning, and just get on with it. That's the attitude. Whereas what you should say is, you should get the fuck away from these people and say, well, listen, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about here, because you're the one that's running me into the ground here. You're the one that's actually having a massive impact on my health here. because that's what we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on health to get in shape instead of focusing on getting in shape to be healthy. Simple.
I'll try to upload the video, Mark. The issue is that once I upload it, it will immediately appear, so I cannot control it. So it will interrupt the conversation. But
no issues. But
But we,
while you're getting her uploaded, I'm going to talk a little bit about how can we actually make our training sessions shorter, because I think for a lot of people, this is what they're looking for. They've got busy lives, they've got busy families, they've got busy jobs, and they're saying to themselves, can I really get a workout done in a half an hour? Yes, you can. I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain how we're going to do this. So when you go into the gym, okay, what you need to think about is warming up the muscle, then making the muscle challenge or making the muscle a little bit harder, and then taking that muscle then to complete an utter annihilation. Now, think of it like this, right? So let's say I say to yourself, Lisa, we're not doing any warm. We're not doing like the standard 3x6 or that kind of warm-up style. I just want you to pick up a dumbbell. That's going to be quite challenging for you, just somewhere in the middle. Let's say 16 is really, really tough. 8 is very, very easy. So in between, let's say 10 or 12 is just that sweet spot. Now, what I'll say to you is this. I want you to move it very, very slowly. Okay? So you're really focusing on the negative and you're really focusing on the positive. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so 10 seconds on each rep. Now, when you get to the 5th rep, you're gonna feel, okay, that's the warm-up done. I feel like I feel like a little bit of blood going into the muscle here. This feels really, really good. The next 5 reps, this is getting harder. I can actually feel like this is actually getting really, really harder. The next 5 reps after that, it's like, oh my God. Wow, I can feel this now. This is really incredible. The last 5 reps, that's when the work starts. So you've just done a 20 rep set, but you've actually warmed up all the way up through to your main set. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
it does, and so you would recommend doing these 3 sets as opposed to just doing 2
in one set, yeah, just in one set. It's just like literally just move the weight nice and controlled. I can guarantee you by the time you get to 10 reps, your body's gonna be shaking. Providing you stay the same form, your body's gonna be. It's like, whoa! I've never felt this in my life. I can feel the muscle shaking here. That's when you know muscle growth activation is kicking into gear. It's not about like it's not about moving that weight from A to B. It's about like you're in full control of the weight. Your body's shaking, but you can feel the muscle working. And the good thing about that is you are in full control of that weight all the way through the sets. Whereas if you're lifting heavy, a lot of people will get that last rep up and they'll just drop the weight. They'll just drop it. You ever notice that? Whereas we're stronger on the negative. So when we get to that point where we just can't push that weight up anymore, believe it or not, we can actually hold on to that. We can actually hold on to that for about a minute before it actually goes down to this position right here. So so that's what I'm saying. People don't understand what true failure is. I would love to be in a position to train everybody in the world this way, because I would show people what true intensity is. I only had a person in the gym the other day who was convinced that this is not going to work. It's not going to work. And all I did was I said, we're not doing any weights. I'm going to show you how to do a standardized press up, but you're going to do it the way I show you. Okay. This guy could do 50 reps press ups, no problem. No problem. The way he did it with me, he struggled to get to 6. 6 reps. He was like, whoa, this is incredible. And I was like, well, this is how you're actually going to activate. This is how you're actually going to make the muscle grow. Now, if you do this over a period of time and write this shit down, and let's say you got 6 reps on a press up, and you do the same next week with the same form, but you get 7. The week after that, you get 8. The week after that, you get 9. That's the key. That's how you know you're making progress. If you're not using this as a tracker, then how do you know you're making progress in the gym? How? Yeah. Because you're only going into the gym and guessing what your workouts are. This is why you have to write this stuff down. This is why I know I've built muscle over the years, because I have my logbook from the last 6 years, and I've noticed that since day one, my numbers was this. Now it's actually increased, and not only the numbers have increased, but the weight has increased, but the weight has only increased once my form stays the exact same since day one. Does that make sense? So I still move the weight the same. Like Peter only said this to me the other day when I did a video on this. I put a video up of me on the chest press where I could lift 90 kgs. I could lift it no problems. Like I was moving the weight, no problems at all. And Peter was like, geez, that's a lot of weight. But for me, it wasn't a lot of weight because I could actually lift more than that. Now, I brought that weight down to 65, which was extremely light for me. But I made that set really, really tough. Like really, really tough. If you go back and watch the video, you can see that I'm shaking. My body's shaking. And I'm really activating the chest. And my chest is in bits. I do not want to come off that machine knowing that I could have done a little bit more in that set. I want to come off that exercise thinking, Jesus, I couldn't have done any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
That was it for me. And if you put everything into that, sorry, Peter, if you put everything into that set, then move on to the next exercise. Why would you go back and do that exercise again?
Yeah, I tried this, Mark. Without guidance, of course, but I tried to do the same thing. But I still did 2 sets, but I tried to do it low and slow, and I think it really worked. And but I was wondering, just to play devil's advocate, is there any place to still include maybe just occasionally some high repetition exercise? Is there any benefit from that still?
It depends, really. It depends on what you see. When you say high reps, what are you training for? Like if you're training for endurance or speed or anything that kind of stuff, you can incorporate that if you want to. But if your goal is to build muscle, you just need to find out what works best for you. So for people, there's people out there that like doing high reps. There's people out there that doing like just low reps strength training. There's people out there that like doing rest pause sets, supersets. You need to find out the workout style that suits you. For me, because I have a busy lifestyle outside the gym, this style works perfectly for me because I only want to get into the gym, do enough to stimulate the muscle, and then get out. That's it. So my workouts are very, very short. I only do like 6 exercises, but I can tell you right now that those 6 exercises are been taken to failure. Like there's nothing left. There's nothing left in the tank. I'm done.
And in terms of exhaustion, Mark, how long do you feel exhausted? Because obviously after those exercises, I mean, immediately after you feel exhausted, but let's say you walk to the locker room, you change your clothes and go home. How long does it take to get rid of that feeling?
Well, the good thing about carnivore is you can recover very, very quickly. Whereas with the standard diet, you can't.
Yeah,
you need a few days to recover. Yeah.
And I also found, since being low carb or even carnivore compared to when I used to eat carbs, even as a trainer, you used to have that whole effect of DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness. And that's like normally 2 days after you've exercised, you normally feel that pain. But being on a very low carb and even carnivore, you don't get that. Like you can feel your muscles at exercise, but it's not the same as that DOMS. You don't have that same pain, and that's still working out this with the same sort of intensity and the same training that you've done before.
Yeah.
And you're like, but how come I don't have that soreness now? And it's purely because of what you're putting into your body and how your body operates on that, obviously on that fuel system.
Yeah. I must say that personally, I do experience it if I have not trained for a while. So if after weeks in a row and I suddenly start to exercise, especially my legs, then I will have this effect because it's so difficult to moderate in that case.
And then also to touch on that, sorry, Mark, just to touch
go ahead,
with
Byron.
our rep thing as well, is that, like Mark said, it depends on what you're training for, but also sometimes if you've had an injury, obviously a lightweight's not going to really make a big an effect, but you obviously can't go too heavy because otherwise you're just going to potentially do damage with the injury. But if you're injured, you can obviously use light weights then to as max where it's comfortable.
Yeah.
But it also, after certain reps, it becomes different. But then it's how you do those reps. So I used to mix the training up as well. And then I would also do like even up to 30 reps, even up to 60 reps failure. But it was going from light weights and I'd stimulate that with some heavy weights. But if you were injured, that lightweight training, you could obviously get it, but it depends on how you do it, how slow you do it,
Exactly.
whether you're
Yeah.
doing explosive movements mixed with slow movements. And that's also part of why some people have spotters or training partners. Your training partner is not there to help you go as heavy as anything. But when you fail on your concentric move up,
Yeah.
like Mark said, you're a lot stronger. So now when you're going back down, the whole idea is you can't lift it up anymore. So your spotter friend can help you lift it up, and then you work on that down part to do that max to failure. And then you get further stimulation. But it's just, I think the perception of people going to gym and what they're there for is two different ideas.
And I think I want to add in there as well, Byron. I think this is why machines get a very, very bad rap, in my opinion, because you should be always training for safety. And what just Byron just mentioned there, if you're on a bench press and you're lifting the weight, a lot of weight, when you're not in control of that movement. You're not in control of that movement because you are not going to failure. I don't care what anybody else tells me. If you're going to failure, you will not be able to push that weight off your chest because you should be failing on the negative. So how are you meant to push the weight back up? Whereas with the machines, when you get to that sticking point where you get to that negative point, you can actually put your foot down on the latch and control the weight down. You know what I mean? So it's a lot safer. You can move the weight at a safer pace also. You cannot do that with barbells. Now, I'm not saying you should not train barbells. I'm not saying that when it comes to training, you shouldn't focus on the foundations, like the likes of the deadlifts, the bench presses, or the squats. In my opinion, we can still activate the muscle without doing these exercises. I think there's too much talk about the deadlift. There's too much talk about the bench press. Nobody can convince me that I can't build my chest without doing the bench press. Like, I can build my chest using cables. I can build my chest doing dumbbells. I can build my chest doing a machine press. I can build my chest doing press ups. I don't need to have any equipment. Look at people that do calisthenics training. They look incredible. They don't use any equipment. They use their own body weight in parks. They lift their own body weight in parks. You know what I mean? So I think what we're doing is we're making things overcomplicated. We're focusing too much on reps. We're focusing too much on sets. We're looking for all these answers. Whereas the best answer is this: what suits you. That's what it comes down to. What do you enjoy? And unless you try the training style that I do, then you won't understand what I'm talking about. Because I believe when you train this way and you nail this training, you won't go back to your old style training because you'll understand what I'm going through.
I've got a question about, you mentioned safety there. I've got another question about, very often people will work a particular set of muscles on one day and then they'll give it a rest for a day or two before going and retraining that muscle again. Does that change with carnivore? Is it necessary to wait a day or two before retraining that muscle before going into doing that again, or is it something that you could do on a daily basis realistically?
Well, this is where it comes down to volume, Lisa. So this is where we talk about high volume and low volume. So this is why I'm a big fan of low volume, because if you're training low volume, you can actually train that muscle more frequently throughout the whole week. Whereas if you're training high volume, you can't. So let's say the bro split. Everybody goes in, they train the chest, and they'll do like a dumbbell chest press, then they'll do a machine chest press, then they'll do an incline chest press. That to me is overtraining. Whereas if you just focus on just one movement for the chest, that could be a press up, a chest press, a dumbbell press, whatever, then just leave that alone and then move on to something else. You could train potentially more throughout the week because your volume for that particular exercise group or that muscle group is low. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're doing too much volume, you have to allow that muscle to recover. It's going to take probably about 2 or 3 days for you to come back and do it again. Now, is that ideal if you want to look at building muscle? No, for me, you should be only in the gym for 3 or 4 days a week, because when you're in the gym, you're breaking the muscle down. You're not actually growing the muscle. The growth actually starts outside the gym. So your recovery. So when the next day, when you recover, you do some stretching, you go for a walk, you give your body the right food, that's when the recovery process kicks in. That's when the muscle growth happens. It doesn't happen in the gym.
Yeah.
That's what we need to focus on.
And the gym's not like, because that's where some of the public also have a thing, is that the more time you spend in the gym doesn't mean you're going to grow more muscle, and that's not the way it works. Over a certain amount of reps, there's no real effect on muscle growth. So you've got that sweet point, like Mark says, that if you stimulate the muscle right, you can literally do 3-4 reps and you're going to get more effect than if you try to do 8 reps or 10 reps and you're doing 20 sets and you're sitting in the gym for an hour and a half, as opposed to you can sit in there for 30, 40 minutes, do quality workout, and you'll get better benefits out of it, as well as you free up some of your time instead of sitting there trying to kill yourself and compete against other people ruining their bodies.
That's
Have you got that
useful
video up there,
information,
Pierre?
actually.
Sorry, yeah, I'll start it. The one about carnivore garbage.
Yeah. Let's
see what he has
have
to
a
say.
quick look at it.
Why on earth would I try a diet that is going to be extremely garbage for my goals?
Right, here we go again. Another one.
I am, first and foremost, someone who wants to be a competitive bodybuilder.
Nothing wrong with that.
And when you look at bodybuilders, what do you see the main macronutrient they consume is? If you guessed carbs, you'd be fucking correct.
And why do you think that is? Every fucker on social media says the exact same thing. Outdated nutritional advice. Time to move on.
Carbs are the single most important thing in terms of driving hypertrophy.
I disagree. The body is fully capable of building muscle without consuming carbohydrates.
If protein is equated for, if you're getting the minimum amount of protein, it is always going to be the amount of carbs you can eat that is holding you back.
Again, I would disagree. If we're getting the minimum amount of protein, which is what we should be doing, then replacing fat with carbohydrates, doing this over time, you will soon realize very, very quickly how important carbohydrates are and if they're actually holding you back.
And carbs are still important,
Name one. Just give me one essential carbohydrate.
especially well in a bodybuilding prep, which I am in. So my carbs are still going to be relatively high because
Good for you. I took part in a bodybuilding competition 6 years ago. Never ate 1 gram of carbohydrate.
we got to keep up the activity in the gym. If I cut out all carbs, my performance would go like.
Oh, yeah, sorry, but
No, that's okay. That's
I think
okay. So
that,
yeah, he was going to talk about performance. So I'll let you touch on this, Peter, because this is your avenue now. So he thinks that if we want to improve our performance, we need carbs. Because you did an experiment on this a few months ago. So I'll leave this over to you.
yeah, I'm not sure which experiment you
You were talking. So
referring to.
you were using. I think you were using milk when you went on your bike
Oh,
ride.
that one. Yeah.
So I want you to talk about being fat adapted to
Yeah.
running on sugar, because this is where the problem is. We're absolutely convinced to improve training performance, we need carbohydrates to improve our training performance. But the problem is, unless you become fat adapted, you will never understand how truly really good at training performance you can actually be.
Yeah. No, that was very funny, but that was actually a bit longer ago, in last summer. I was fully fat adapted and I started cycling for, 100 kilometers, so like 3 hours, sort of. And I actually did reach my PR on that one, but that's more of a coincidence, I think. It was more like a psychological effect, I think. I was drinking raw milk. So that's obviously still not as high in carbs as this guy is eating, of course, because it was like maybe 3 bottles. So 3 liters, it's like 75, 80, 90 grams of carbs in 3 hours while doing road cycling. So you burn like 900 calories an hour or so. In that case, maybe even more, because, well, I was cycling at my FTP level. And what I noticed was that I had to take more insulin. And, well, this insulin, of course, has nothing to do with the anabolic effect, because you're not burning muscles or so while road cycling, because that happens afterwards. And I didn't feel really great. I mean, it worked, obviously. But, yeah, and the issue is here that the tricky thing is that the things that he says, to some degree, are true if you are already carb loading. So if he is eating more carbs, and research supports that, then it will help him a little bit. And of course, it's also true when he talks about hypertrophy in the sense when it just comes to muscle volume. So in that sense, the volume, it does increase. But in the end, he said a lot of wrong things, of course. I think he was trying to refer to the fact that if you eat only protein, that you don't get a huge enough insulin bump. And that's definitely not true, because although I use less insulin every day, I still have to bolus like 4 to 6 units sometimes if I eat a decent carnivore meal. So that's really not an issue. And I already talked about this half a meal doses that I have to take anyway if I do strength training. And so it's... What else did he say? Well, a lot of the other usual arguments, I think.
Yeah, see, the issue I have when he talks about carb loading is this, that unless you're using up those carbs are going to be stored as fat.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty much where we're going here. So unless you've got this is why when you look at athletes, that this is what they do for a living. So they're always out running, they're always doing sports, they're always in the gym, so they can use up this carbohydrates. You know what I mean? Whereas the average person can't. Now a lot of people are going to watch this and they're going to be saying, well, if he can do it, I can do it. No, you can't. You can't, because you're not like this guy. So that's why you need to move away from that. Not everybody is the same as you. You look at Paul Saladino. He's eating carbohydrates at the moment, but look what he does for a living. You know what I mean? He's got a great lifestyle. He probably has people cooking for him. He can go to bed whenever he feels like. You know what I mean? He can train whenever he feels like. The average person can't do that.
Yeah, it's
like
the
I mentioned
same thing
earlier.
with Tour de France runners. I mean, if you look at their fat percentage, they probably also have literally no visceral fats. And so when they are actually participating in the Tour de France or other events, they might even seem healthy when you look at a lot of health markers. But the issue is there afterwards when they stop with this exercise or they reduce it. And there is, of course, the issue of just the high insulin levels. And that's still an issue because insulin plays a role in many more processes in the body. And sure, it's enough to control glucose levels and to push energy into the cells during exercise. But it plays a role in women, of course, with the reproductive organs and with men probably as well, but with a lot of other processes. And so your insulin levels are high, just purely because of glucose and energy delivery. And all those other processes in your body, you will also see a high insulin level. And I don't think that can be right.
And see, sorry,
from.
Byron. Go ahead, Byron.
Just wanted to jump in there as well, but also, the other thing, besides a whole lot of reasons, and this is no disrespect to any youngsters, but there's a lot of these people on there, they're youngsters and they're talking about the bodybuilding and all this and that. And we know there's a big difference when you're in your early 20s and your body's at its peak levels and you're training. There's a big difference between that. And even when I was in my late 30s and I switched to a low carb after a long time and my body had adapted to that low carb, high fat, I still put on muscle mass. I still got bigger. I got stronger. I pushed heavier weights than what I was before because of the way I train and obviously just eating. So carbs doesn't just, you can be on low carbs and no carbs. You can still put on muscle mass. It all depends on how you train and obviously the way you're eating, how you let your body recover and all that. But never mind that. The other thing that a lot of the guys never bring up when they're talking about bodybuilding, you're not having carbs just to get big. The carbs don't make you big. The carbs are going to make you fat. Yes, you might put on a bit of size. But let's not forget, those competitions, not one of those people in those competitions are there naturally. There's other substances they're taking to make their bodies that ridiculously big. And that's a fact. So why else do they have to take so much carbohydrates? Because if you don't have so much carbohydrates and you're taking all that other junk with it, there's going to be some serious side effects and other issues, even though there are. But they don't talk about that. They're having high carbs, they're having all the stuff like that because of all the other stimulant stuff that they're taking as well. You're not going to get big and get into those competitions unless you're taking stuff.
And see, when you're taking these drugs, you can get away with eating whatever you want.
100%.
Literally whatever you want, they can take. And this is what frustrates me in the industry, because we have an awful. You ever notice when you're watching these videos, they have their shirt off? You ever notice that? They're like, okay, I'm making my meal here. Look at my 6-pack. I look amazing here. I look amazing. But nobody has any idea what this fucker's doing in the background. Like, you know what I mean? We all know who we're talking about here. You know what I mean? There's a guy on social media that used to be carnivore and now he's not. And you ever notice when you watch his videos, he always has his shirt off for some reason. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't make sense to me. This is all a scam. This is all to get followers. This is all to make money. That's what this is all down to. This has nothing to do with health. And this is where I mentioned earlier on, we're focusing on the wrong problem here. We all know we can get in shape. We can eat McDonald's 7 days a week. As long as your calories are in check, you will get in shape. It won't last.
It always happens in the context of high intensity training, overtraining basically, and most of the times bodybuilding. I know another guy that started like 4 or 5 years ago, and he followed the same route as I did. Basically, he discovered Dr. Bernstein. He's type 1 diabetic. He was really overweight, managed to lose all that weight, and of course, like me, he started to be interested in fitness and doing that. Then people start to exaggerate. They go deeper and deeper into the fitness, and he basically went towards bodybuilding. And now the guy, at some point, you always reach moments where you crave carbs. I also experienced it. And I can imagine that if you stick in this feeling, then you start eating carbs, you start to feel worse. You have to eat more carbs, and it starts to work again, obviously, because that's what they report. And you continue training and you up the carbohydrate intake. Maybe add in also performance enhancers at some point. And what you see is basically, in my opinion, a lot of these people start to become really unpleasant as well. They
have anger issues. They have mental health issues also.
And also, a high carb athlete, if you want to talk about high carb athletes, well, why don't we also look at the Ensuno wrestlers? Do they look like bodybuilders? They also eat high-powered meals.
Yeah.
And not only that, you look
at. If carbs are going to make you lean and muscular, then those guys would be super lean.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Byron, because if it was all about heavy weights and just lifting heavy weight in the gym, then why do we not see powerlifters have the best bodies?
100%.
Then they don't have the best bodies. The best bodies are those people that go into the gym, eat properly. You know, I mean, they look aesthetically, they look incredible. But when you look at a powerlifter's food intake is very, very high. And what do? They just lift a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So if it was all about just lifting a lot of weight, then surely these guys would look absolutely incredible. They don't.
And there's nothing to do with real life targets, these fat percentages that these people are after. So it's just a totally different world.
Absolutely.
It is a totally different world, Peter. I think so too. And I think, you know, we've got to think about on a daily basis, regular people, not people that are entering bodybuilding competitions, not social media influencers and all of that kind of thing, but just regular people who are just wanting to be healthy. That's it. Just want to be healthy. I just want a healthy amount of muscle on my body. I'm not Paul Saladino. I don't get up at 6 a.m. and go surfing and then run along the beach with my dog. And then it's just not real life for the vast majority of people. And so watching these people that have got these really kind of, I'm sorry, but extreme ways of living or very unusual ways of living, trying to achieve something that is just not part of normal life for 99.9% of us, you know?
Well, let's talk about... Sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, what I'm just saying, it just makes more sense to think about how you can build a healthy amount of muscle for longevity, for
Yeah.
health, just to live your life in a healthy way, as opposed to trying to achieve, looking like, I don't know, whoever these influencers are.
Well said. Well, let's talk
Yeah.
about another extreme, Lisa. This is right up your avenue. Let's talk about veganism. Okay, so let's talk about it, because we
Let's
spoke
get
about
into
this a few months
Oh, we have a
ago
nice
or a
video
few
on
weeks
that.
ago.
I'll try to upload it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be,
we'll get a video up shortly. But
well,
myself and
1
Victoria got
second.
into a
Yeah,
conversation
but
there.
it will interrupt. I'll put it up right away, so it will be here in 3 seconds.
Okay, well,
Lately,
here we
how
go.
similar carnivores and vegans are. We both believe what we're eating is the best for our body. We both believe how we're eating is the best for the environment. We both disagree with everyone else, and we're both very opinionated. It's nice to sometimes find the similarities rather than the differences. And I think algorithms on social media constantly want to make us fight and hate on each other, but we're more similar than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What thoughts have I got on that? I was a vegetarian from 16. Okay. And I did 4 years actually of veganism until my body said, I really need you to eat some fish now. And that was a little bit of a fight for me. But you know what? I do agree with what she said. Absolutely 100%, because I've been both sides of the fence. And I did the vast majority of my life as some form of vegetarian. So I was vegetarian for most of my life, a few years as a vegan, and then as a pescatarian, then, keto, and then now mainly carnivore. And what I don't like to see is that the sort of the carnivore groups, picking on the vegans and saying that they're stupid or they're getting it wrong or whatever. What I want to see is for us to educate them, but in a kind way, and to recognize where they're coming from, because I have been that person myself, and I know it wasn't there because I'm stupid. I wasn't vegetarian because I just wasn't listening, or whatever. I actually did do quite a bit of reading and watched a lot of videos, like we all do, about diet. I watched a lot of videos about vegetarianism and veganism, and the first thing actually that got me vegetarian was, I don't remember why, but I was about 16 years old, and they ferried us off into the TV room when I was at school and showed us the inside of an abattoir. And from that day forth, I never ate meat. I just didn't eat any meat after that, because there was something inside me. I know I don't remember, it was a long, long time ago, and I don't remember all the narrative that came around it. But what I saw was cows being taken into a shed and put into like a sort of a pen area, and then, a bolt through the head, and then they would fall sideways. I mean, nobody wants to be a part of that. Nobody wants to see that, because it's painful to see that. And, I was a vulnerable 16-year-old girl. I saw that and I thought, I don't want to be a part of that, because it didn't come with the full picture. It didn't come with all the information that a person needs to decide what they need to be eating for their own health. And it's so far removed from what we should be eating in nature, because ultimately we are, we're part of whatever shape the planet is. We're part of the planet. We're part of the whole ecosystem. And just sort of taking that element of it. We kill cows in this awful way, and now you're eating them and you should be eating vegetables, is just not the full picture at all. And there's a variety of arguments that come up as a vegetarian or a vegan. One of them being that we don't, if we don't need to kill animals, then we shouldn't. If animals don't need to suffer, then they shouldn't. And I would agree with that. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I love animals. I've got a dog here that's been driving me mad for most of the episode, and I don't want animals to suffer. I don't want them to suffer unnecessarily. Do I think that, factory farming, and, we've all seen inside of, videos of inside of, certain types of factory farms, and it's upsetting. It's really deeply upsetting. Are we in a position, though, where we can just, we live out in a, in a field, and we've got our own animals, and we can kill them and eat them in a way that there's little suffering? Unfortunately not. And there's a lot of suffering that goes on from eating vegetarian foods. And one of the points that I used to make as a vegetarian or vegan is that, all the sentient beings, we're all sentient beings, humans and all the animals as well, and each one is equal. And I used to think that each one of us is equal. So what makes it okay for me to eat, a pig? What's the difference between eating a pig or a dog? Because I would never eat a dog, for example. And the thing that was never a part of the argument of the narrative was, what does a human being actually need in order to be healthy? There was a belief that it's probably okay to eat all of the different fruits and vegetables and grains and whatever else. But what I've realized over time is that it isn't optimal. Can you get by on it? Yes. Can you survive on it? Can some people seem like they're thriving on it? Yes, for a certain amount of time. So we were just talking about, Byron, you were saying, there's a very big difference between when you're working out in your early 20s and then when you're working out in your late 30s or 40s and 50s and beyond. There's a very big difference, because there's a lot of, there's a lot within us that counteracts, a lot of like teenagers and 20s or whatever can be, they drink the Coke and they eat the fast food and so on, and they still seem like they're in fairly good shape. But if they continue doing that over time, then it's actually going to, it's not optimal for them now. It's probably bad, for their mental health and for their energy and so on. But they kind of look like they're in shape because they're in their early 20s or whatever. But if you continue doing it over time, then they're not going to be in the best of shape, and it's going to have an impact on them, because they don't have, as you get older, you don't have youth on your side to counteract a bad lifestyle. And I believe that is the case with a vegetarian and vegan diet. Are there benefits to being vegetarian over being vegan? Absolutely, because you're going to probably have, depending on what you eat, you're probably going to have the eggs, you're probably going to have the cheese, and there's probably going to be a higher amount of the amino acids that you need and the protein that you need that you're unlikely to get in a strictly vegan diet. But, for me personally, it took some getting over myself, and, I won't bore you with the same story over and over again that I've mentioned 1,000 times before, but it really took some getting over myself to when my body said to me, you need to eat meat. As a 30-something year-long vegetarian, that was a challenge for me. And I thought, I have really got to listen what my health is saying to me. I've really got to pay attention to this. And it really took some getting over myself to realize that it's for my health. And if it's for my health, it means it's the right thing. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult mentally for me to get over that. And I do meet a lot of people that are vegetarian, or there are certain meats that they won't eat because they've got like an emotional connection to the animal. And I totally get that. But shifting that mindset from kind of the world that we live in right now, which is so plastic, but actually into, if we imagine what we were ancestrally, this is what we will have eaten. This is what we will have eaten, and this is what's right for us going forward and over time, even if we're getting away with something that's deficient in all of that in our youth.
Lisa, I think that this is also sort of an inconvenient truth, right? The vegans, they do it for idealistic reasons, also health reasons sometimes, initially at least, mostly idealism. And I think they are prone to wishful thinking most of the time. So you tend to lose objectivity in that way, because there's this wishful thinking like veganism, it's good for the animals, it's healthy for us, it must be healthy for the environment. And when you start to look at research or just any other information, you tend towards that direction, that it must be like good for the environment. Well, the inconvenient truth is actually, if you look at it objectively, like, we're killing animals everywhere. Human infrastructure, like getting into your car and traveling, it's worse actually, because if you go into your car, the only reason that you do it is you want to get faster from point A to B. And at least when you're killing an animal, slaughtering it, I think that's a better word, because that implies the motivation to do it. Then you are doing that for your own nutrition. And the inconvenient truth is also, what you said, like, ancestrally speaking, we need those nutrients. Like, there's B12, and that's interesting topic, of course, because also animals, they tend to lack B12 nowadays because the soil is depleted sometimes. So it's very interesting, like, how did we get that ancestrally speaking in some regions? But definitely it's very clear that you cannot get it just from some dirt on the carrot or anything like that. So.
Yeah.
And like you said, sorry, Brian, and like you said, Lisa, like, nobody wants to see any harm come to animals. Like, I'm an animal lover myself. I've got a dog, but like, what's the solution? Like, at the end of the day, if we don't eat meat, humans are going to suffer. Like, that's a fact. I'm sorry, that's a fact.
The other thing, though, I think what humans forget is that at the same time, you need to respect each other. You need to respect the way each other lives. And I think there's a big difference between moral issues and health issues. So if you got a moral issue against the way animals are being treated, or the way they've been killed or culled, or whatever you want to call it, whichever method, there's a big difference between whether you want to stand for the way some animals are getting abused when they get killed. I totally agree with that, because at the end of the day, you need to respect what's given to us, and you need to make it as painless as possible for eating purposes, and then make sure you eat that animal that you're going to kill.
Yeah.
But it should be done painless, not tortured or anything like that, which we know is
It
practiced.
should be done quickly. Yeah.
So to me, there's a big difference. And I think where a lot of the vegans, to me, overstep their way of thinking or their belief system, is that you're imposing your belief system on someone else's life. If I'm eating this way, or my lifestyle is this way, and it's not affecting you in any way, respect the way I live and eat. The same as I need to respect, if a person wants to be a vegan, by all means, be it. Eat as many plants as you want, do whatever you want. That is your prerogative, but don't come and forcibly put your belief system on someone else's, because it's got nothing to do with the moral issue.
Exactly.
We're talking about health and moral, two different scenarios. So if you want to now, don't be a murderer, go and focus on the animals being tortured, and focus on the industries that are torturing the animals to cut that out. I totally agree with that, by all means. But at the same time, don't come and tell that humans that have been eating animals for thousands of years, and you're going to only change it in the last 60 years or 80 years, and especially when you're eating stuff that wasn't around in the last 200 years because the plantation has changed. Like, get to know your history a little bit better. And at the same time, the stuff you're buying in the shop, how's that very friendly in any way? It's more of this stuff gets sold in plastic than most other things. And then how many animals and other insects are getting killed with this type of vegetation that has to be grown for the masses, if you want to go that way? There's a big, that's where I think a lot of the social media and everything's gone offline, and whether some of these people actually need a bit more help in this, with all respect, in a sense, that go beyond. Like, I really have a big thing when you start blocking traffic and you start doing things, again, for a moral reason of animals being hurt and harmed. There's a big difference between that and then, don't eat animals. Now you want someone else to become unhealthy just because of the way you believe. Like, don't enforce it on someone else. Respect the way other people are living, but there's different ways to go about it.
Yeah, and when we talk about respect, like, my respect for the animal, like, just goes up, because that animal is doing things for my life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's what we should be focusing on here. Okay, that animal died for me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I think
I
that's what I think
totally
that's
agree with
very, very important, that we're not doing this out of cruelty. Like if that animal died, you can be damn sure I will respect it, and I'll probably eat the whole thing. But I'll give gratitude that this animal is literally going to save my life.
Yeah.
So I'm not
There's
so,
also,
so I'm not taking this out of context at all. So I have full respect for the animal, full respect.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
agree.
possible. I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of the things that I hear people say when they become carnivore is that they stop with the food waste, so they don't have all this, mushy cucumber and rotting salad leaves and carrots, bendy carrots, and all of that rubbish in the back of the fridge that gets thrown away. I mean, I'm sure you'll all agree that what you buy gets eaten, every single last bit of it. Every single last bit of what I buy in terms of food gets eaten. Nothing gets thrown away. It just doesn't. So that's the first thing. And before I moved over into a carnivorous diet, or a very strongly meat-based diet, now I do eat a bit of fruit now and then, but nothing gets chucked out. That's my point. Before that, I used to throw probably a third of my food away, and that was incredibly wasteful. And how many animals died for that food that I chucked out that was never used for anything? It was just thrown out. And then the second thing that I wanted to mention was about animals. And so if you see, if you're in the wild, you're on safari or whatever, and you see a particular animal taking down another animal to eat it, well, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Did you see that a lion did? Oh, that was the wrong thing for the lion to do. No, of course it wasn't, because lions do eat, I don't know, what do they eat? Antelopes. But lions do eat antelopes, for example, because that's what they're supposed to do. That, you wouldn't be like, don't be ridiculous, have a Weetabix. You wouldn't be doing that.
But you have to think about, sorry, Lisa, but you have to think about it this way. If you were in that situation, if you were in that survival situation, you have to think about this logically. You would have to kill an animal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would. Otherwise, how do you live? You're not going to live on vegetables.
Especially if it comes
what I mean?
winter and it's snowing and that, you're not going to find plants to be eating all.
No.
And the amount of plants that you have to eat, if you want to, because also a lot of these vegetarian people or vegan type people will also do the calorie thing. If you go have a look at how much you have to eat to suffice what you need to survive, there's no ways you're eating that amount of plants and you don't have a fridge big enough in your house to store that amount of food.
And then we look at the amino acid profile as well. You're not going to get that in plants. You're just not. You'd have to eat a shitload of them to get the same amino acid profile from eating steak.
Absolutely.
A lot of plants.
And the vast array of vegetables and fruits that I had to eat in order to feel, alive and healthy was phenomenal. I noticed that I had to eat a lot of different types of fruit and veg every single day. Like, the optimal for me was about 9 or 10 different types of fruit and veg in a day. Can you imagine? In order for me to actually feel okay. Anything less than that, and I felt suboptimal. I did feel suboptimal because I just wasn't getting enough of, I don't know what the vitamins were and so on. I didn't really pay attention to any of that at the time, but I knew that I had to eat a great big vast array of all these different things. It wasn't about the amount of food I was eating. It wasn't about the bulk of the food. It was the variety that I had to have in order to meet any kind of, like, I don't know, energy and mental health.
That's an interesting aspect. We talked about amino acids, and in theory, in theory, also in practice, you can balance out the ingredients of your diet, get the right amino acid profile. You can build muscle on a vegan diet if you want, and you add in maybe the missing vitamins. The point is that we can do that only now since supermarkets are full with all this variety. But second thing is, like, 100, 200 years ago, we didn't have the science that told us, like, which amino acids are in which foods. So how are we going to determine what to eat? We didn't have skills if we go like 1,000 years back. How are you going to determine what to eat?
Also, Peter, like you said, though, have a look. The supermarkets are full with with all these vegetables and everything throughout the year. They're not seasonal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the foods are getting flown in from other countries into other, like between countries, backwards and forwards. So before all this transportation was around, you can't tell me humans were living off all this stuff throughout the year. Like that's just one logical sense.
Yeah.
Like they were definitely only having seasonal products, but at the same time, what is one thing that's common around the world in pretty much nearly every country is the animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Well, guys, let's wrap it up. That was a great conversation. Any final words you want to say, Lisa?
I mean, if there are any, any vegetarians watching that are kind of on the fence about this, I can fully understand where you're coming from. I absolutely fully understand where you're coming from. And what I would encourage you to do is to look up anybody that's gone from a vegan or vegetarian diet into a more meat-based diet and listen to what they have to say. I mean, I have given my 2 penneth, but there are people that have done, whole interviews and videos and so on about this. And it doesn't mean that you have to change anything now, but I would say gather some information from people that have moved themselves from one to the other, and listen to the benefits that they've got about it, and also how they've been able to shift their understanding of how things work. It doesn't mean that you have to by getting information, it doesn't mean you have to make any changes, but gathering information, I think, is the key to helping you to determine how you're going to move forward.
Well said, Lisa. And where can people go to find you?
Best way to find everything that I do is on my website, ketogentility.co.uk, and you can find there a link to my Facebook group. You'll find some great blog posts as well. So go over to my website and then we can connect.
Super. And Byron, where can people go to find you?
Carnival Beats on TikTok, Carnival Beats on Instagram, and Carnival Beats YT on YouTube. And then obviously I've put a lot of the songs on Spotify to support the Carnival community if you want to listen. And obviously some of the words and messages are in the words. Music to train to and listen to.
And I can just say we're very, very grateful to have you on board, Byron. Your music is absolutely incredible. So,
It is.
Yeah, thanks very much for everything you do for us. And Peter, where can people go to find you?
Low Carb Perspective for all my English content, and I'm known as the Dutch carnivore in the Netherlands. That's mostly in Dutch, or only Dutch, actually.
Super. And if guys want to reach out, anybody wants to reach out to me, just reach up, just key in my website. It's called Fitness Beyond Time. I'm on all platforms, social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, my email is nsmark93@gmail.com. I also want to mention that I'm involved in another podcast with Victoria. We do this a couple of days a week. We interview people all over the world, just random people that come on. And we also want to shout out to Brian, who's also from the carnivore community. Anybody else we need to shout out?
Tony.
Tony. How can I forget about Tony? How can we forget about our buddy Tony? Tony will be back with us next week. He just had a very, very busy weekend. He had a little bit of sad news this weekend. So, Tony, if you are watching this, we're thinking of you, buddy, and we'll be thinking of you, or we'll be talking to you again very, very soon. So, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
See you next time.